Hey, I'm Delise.
And I'm Ginny.
We know that parenting comes in seasons, and even the smallest wins deserve a happy dance.
Join us as we chat with moms in every stage of the parenting journey, fixing our eyes on Jesus each step of the way.
This is Blessings and Motherhood, because we believe that you can hold tissues and confetti at the same time.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Blessings and Motherhood. We are so excited because today we had Emily Phillip in the studio with us, and we really just want to encourage you guys that we know this is a nuanced topic, but you can homeschool. And today, Emily just packs in all of the encouragement for you guys, and you're going to have so much fun listening to this conversation.
Absolutely. At the end of the conversation, she gives a lot of really practical tips and talks about her dip bar, so you don't want to dip out before the end. Hey, Emily, welcome to Blessings in Motherhood.
Hey!
We are so glad that you're here today. For those who might not be familiar with you and the things that you do on your platform, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Emily Phillip, and I am a homeschooling mom. I'm coming up on my 10th year, starting my 10th year of homeschooling, and I've been doing it the whole time with Classical Conversations. Just a really fast, because I think it's a funny story of how I got into it. I went to church with the Bortons, who started CC, and I was in a youth group with Robert, who is the current CEO. And so, but then fast forward, had no interest in homeschooling, but then decided to at the last minute when my son was entering kindergarten, and somebody said, how about CC? Or actually, it was my mom. She said, you should do CC because that's the one that Lee Borton started. And I was like, okay. So I didn't go to an info meeting. I did it all the wrong ways. That's not how you're supposed to do it, guys. You're supposed to go to an info meeting and then an open house. But I don't know, it always switches, but I didn't do it the right way. And I started and I fell immediately in love. It's just the coolest. But anyway, I've been homeschooling and I've been married for 17 years.
Congrats.
We just had our 17th anniversary. I have 4 kiddos, 3 boys and a girl. So my boys are 14, 11, 9, and then my little girl is 7. And they are so awesome. Love being a mom. I love homeschooling, even though it is not easy. Many days, super, super not easy, but it is so fun. I've also been a Foundations Essentials Director I'm coming up on my 8th year. I'll be starting my 8th year. And my husband last year was a first-time director. He did our Challenge 1, and it was awesome. We held on tight all year, like, oh, how's this going to go? But he got into a rhythm, and it definitely was a lot of time. And we're looking forward to year number 2 with him directing Challenge 1 again to see that prep time come way down. And hopefully it'll be a good situation that he can continue because he still has a full-time job.
Yeah.
But God ordained it that his boss was willing to give him off enough days of the week to come and be a director once a week. So it's been a huge blessing, and it's really fun to have him like looped into our homeschooling more and CC more and like really in the weeds of what we're doing at home. So it was really fun. During the pandemic, I started sharing more on Instagram. I first started out just talking generally about homeschooling because everybody was coming home and freaking out. And I thought, I just want to help people because I have a lot of systems in place and I love to share and I love to encourage. And it started to pick up just a little bit. And then once the pandemic settled a little bit more, I started to kind of find my niche, which was just sharing more about CC in particular and how we homeschool with CC at home. So my account on Instagram is, it's heavily CC, but it's also more generally homeschooling and just like life. And we're a sports heavy family. And this is a mega sports time of life for us in the summer because we've got like overlapping sports, which is not typical. So this was bananas. I had a swim team this morning, drove here to do the podcast, and we got baseball tonight. So it's just like nuts. But my parents live in our neighborhood, which is such a blessing and allows us to do a lot more than we could, if it was just my husband and I. So I have to acknowledge that is a blessing that gives us a lot more just hands and drivers and, responsible adults.
Yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah. That's a goal for us. I was literally on the way over here talking to my mom about, okay, I need you to buy that lot because it's for sale. She called me about it. So I said, yes, I have 2 for you.
It.
Get this one.
Is she interested?
She is. Exactly. And my mother-in-law is too. So pray that they can move in.
Such a gift.
Yes. I would love that.
Such a gift.
It would be amazing. Yeah. So yay. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I love following you on Instagram. You talk about CC, but you talk about homeschooling in general. I know I've gotten so many great book recommendations from her, different things that help me like supplement math and things like that. Super fun stuff for my kids. And way back in October, Emily, you shared something that really just struck home with me. And it was talking about your relationship with your kids and how some people say that, oh, I could never homeschool my kids because it would ruin my relationships with my kids. And that hurts my heart. I'm like, no, don't think that. And you brought it up, and I know you got so many responses. And so could you tell me a little bit, like maybe why that was important at that time for you to bring up and have that conversation on social media?
Yes. So I had I had two conversations almost within days of each other. One with my childhood best friend, whose oldest and only child is, I think she's going to be 3 this summer. So she's early, and she's kind of looking forward, like, am I going to want to homeschool? And we end up talking about, because she is so good at just like, what's going on in your life? And so much of my life is homeschooling and CC and what I'm doing with my kids. So we end up talking about homeschooling a lot. And she expressed, I'm just really concerned that my relationship with my daughter will suffer greatly because her daughter is amazing, but strong-willed. And she's also strong-willed, my friend, the adult. So they're already butting heads, and she feels like it's probably going to get worse if we homeschool. And then, of course, I encouraged her away from that. But then just like a couple days later, I was talking to another mom at church of 3 kids who has always just done traditional school, and her kids were currently in a private school. And I've talked to her over the years several times about homeschooling, because she is like the picture of like, you would be so great. Like I firmly believe that anyone can homeschool. I truly believe that to the core of my being, that anyone can. But certain people are going to be, are going to have a slightly easier time with it than others. Mm-hmm. And she is one of those people. I think she would do really, really well, but she just like, she's not getting it. And one of the things that she has said over and over is my relationship with my kids would suffer. And no amount of encouraging I've unfortunately not been able to convince her otherwise to take the plunge. But having those conversations so close to one another, I was like, man, I know this isn't true, because for one thing, it was never a concern that I personally had, which doesn't mean it's not true, but it just wasn't anything that I had ever been concerned about. So it hadn't occurred to me of like, there are people that think this. Like, if you get the gift of spending so much time with your kids, how could that outcome be worse? Like, it just wasn't computing for me. But I thought, well, I'm only one person. Let me use my Instagram platform to see what other people think. And so that started, and it took me probably a week to kind of like ask questions, compile, and then sort of write out what I was seeing people say, which definitely backed up my own thoughts, which is it absolutely does not harm relationships at all. Mm. It is such a gift. It is a gift and a blessing.
Sure. Yeah, it doesn't have to. That's for sure. It doesn't have to. I don't know if you know this about me, but I was homeschooled through high school.
I did not know
So
that.
I've been in the homeschooling community my whole life.
Okay.
I know nothing else. And so that has given me an interesting vantage point for conversations like this. And then even just thinking about wanting to homeschool my son, and, I work for a homeschool curriculum company. Right. So I'm still very much surrounded by it. And so Jenny and I were talking about that because for the sake of the relationship with my son, want to homeschool. Mm-hmm. And I have seen the challenges that have come up depending on the circumstances for people with their relationships in homeschooling. So this is such an interesting conversation for me, because on the one hand, I'm like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. And then on the other hand, I've seen products where it was a problem and it didn't have to be that way.
Right.
So it's just very interesting to me. So I want to know, first of all, what are some of those questions that you asked? And then what did you find from this conversation?
Yeah. Well, and I want to say too, first of all, that it's not that your relationship is always going to be easy and perfect and wonderful. Mm-hmm. There will definitely be tough times and tough seasons. Like I really think of it more as seasons. And it was interesting when I first started homeschooling, I realized how much homeschooling is just like general parenting. Mm-hmm. Because I'd come out of, or I was still in when I started homeschooling, the toddler years. And you watch your babies change into toddlers, and your toddlers change into preschoolers, and your preschoolers change into elementary. You're going through all these changes, and that happens in homeschooling too. There's no arriving. Maybe when you graduate them, you've arrived. But even then, right, you're still going to be transitioning into, now you have adult kids, and then they're going to get married maybe and have kids maybe and whatever. There's never arriving. There's always adjustments in your relationship, and you're going through things and growing and changing. Your kids are mega changing and growing, and hormones and, family dynamics and life circumstances and all these different things that can affect your relationship. So there will be seasons that are hard where your relationship feels very strained. But I think with this topic, want to emphasize is that the end, for sure, the end product is that your relationship is so much stronger, so much better. And I think even in the pockets between the seasons, or even in the midst of the seasons, you're going to see glimpses of just such beauty that make you so grateful that you have the ability, the gift to be able to homeschool. So, okay, you asked me what questions. Okay, so the first question that I asked was, I wanted to know, first of all, whether it was ever a concern that you had that your relationship would suffer. Because as I shared, it had never even occurred to me.
Right.
The nightmares I have, guys, are that I'm working and my kids are somewhere else, and I'm like, who has my kids? These are nightmares I have. So I've never been. It was just never a concern of mine. So I wanted to know, like, who are we? Are you with me? Or are you the concerned one? Because obviously now I know there are concerned ones. So I found that, and I had hundreds. So I only have, like, my following is kind of small. It's like 3,500 people. So I had like between 300 and 400 people respond to these, which is a large amount of people for my following. So of those, like 300 to 400 people, 55% said that they had never been concerned about it, but 45 did. So that's about 50-50 to me.
Yeah.
So I found that really interesting. So that meant it was something worthy of digging into, And so then I asked, if you decided to homeschool despite that concern, has the concern become a reality? So, like, so you were worried that it was going to affect your relationship, but you went ahead and did homeschooling. What did you find out? So yes, it has suffered, or there are seasons that has suffered, but not always, or overall it hasn't suffered, were the choices I gave. Only 3% said that it had suffered. And the majority said overall it hasn't suffered. And then just a few said there are seasons that it has suffered, but not always. And I would put myself into the season thing, but not even, it's in my family, it's not even whole seasons. We'll just have sometimes it is. We'll have really hard days where I'm like, man, our relationship is really, really strained today. And it might even go on for a couple of days. But suffering is too strong of a word for what I've experienced in my own family. So maybe I would go into overall, I haven't suffered. Then I asked, if you continue to homeschool despite your relationship with your child suffering for it, why do you homeschool? Okay, so I guess I was trying to ask if your relationship is actually suffering, why are you still homeschooling? And so that was just like people to write back for me. And I did keep most of the responses. And generally, a lot of people said, we have suffered greatly over the years or here and there. But overall, it has, and they would share personal stories with me of just overcoming struggles that they had. I didn't hear from anybody that was like, it was so terrible that I had to put my kids back in. I didn't hear from anybody that said that. Like, anybody that answered these that sort of felt that way, I guess it wasn't strong enough to write to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to share why they were struggling, which maybe they didn't even know, though.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I think, sorry, you wrote this down, but I was thinking the same thing. Is homeschooling really the problem? Is it the homeschooling or is it just something else? Is there something you're not seeing? Is it something that maybe your kids are just struggling with and it came out of nowhere? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I wrote it down. I actually wrote down homeschooling is not the problem. Yes, it is absolutely true. The majority, let's call it 90%. Sure. 90% of people who do this want to do it and their relationships thrive. Why? Because humans are humans. And so there is going to be tension, but the more time and opportunity you have to work through that, the stronger you become.
Right.
So just being together more is helpful.
Yes.
It's kind of like when you live in a tiny home, it's tight, but it makes you guys grow closer.
Right. Because you have no other choice.
Yeah. Same general idea. And you might be at each other all the time. Another thing parents say all the time is, I've got to get those kids their own rooms. They're at each other all the time. But at the same time, they're with each other all the time. So they know each other a lot. And so they're
getting practice with relationships.
100%.
Yes.
So it's like, so I don't know that I could say most of the time that homeschooling is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
There's usually something else. And that's why I'm so excited for us to talk about this, because I think sometimes the enemy tries to distract us. I'm not here to say that everyone must, homeschool. There's no must here, but it is beautiful and beneficial. And I believe God is inviting a lot of people to do it. And I do believe that everyone can do it 100%.
Yes,
and that he will empower you to do it if you're called to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So if the enemy is distracting you with homeschooling being the problem, there's some more questions under there. So what would you say might be the problem?
Sin. Sin.
One
my
word.
own sin, my kids' sin, rubbing up against each other. Because holy cow, you put multiple sinners in one little space and you're going to rub a lot. And I think one thing about homeschooling, one of my favorite parts is how much it refines us. It magnifies our weaknesses. And you can choose to either buckle down and work on them with the Lord's help, or you can flee, put your kids back on the bus,
and
let somebody else deal with them. So that may sound a little harsh, but if you know me, that sometimes I say things that are a little direct. And so I totally agree with you. The homeschooling is not the problem. I think some people homeschooling is hard because of the sin rubbing up, and people maybe would end up feeling like they need something to blame. They need a quick fix. And so they pin it on homeschooling. But I honestly, this conversation is more for me about somebody who's considering homeschooling to begin with,
Right?
And thinking to themselves, I might not want to because I'm convinced that our relationship will suffer. And so that is honestly more of what I'm even trying to target to say to someone considering no, that isn't true. It's not true. If you're willing to have your sin be magnified and for Jesus to work on it, and and that you will because you love your kids so much that you're going to work with them through their own sin, and you're going to grow and be refined and let Jesus do the hard work on you year after year, month after month, week after week, day after day. It really is a daily thing. It can even be a moment by moment thing, in your sin. Ooh, you have those hard times, or you're just every little thing is bugging you, but you still have to get homeschooling done. And then they happen to sin. They sin. And then you're sin and you're just so it's Lord Jesus. So man, there's so much opportunity for God to work. Oh man. Homeschooling is just Jesus, help me. It's just every day. It's such an opportunity for Jesus to work.
Yeah. When you get in those times, and I've had many of these in my homeschool, I'm sure you had them with Leah too, and you're just looking at them stop. What are some practical things that you've done to get out of that mindset? Sometimes you just want to, I don't know what you want. You want to scream or hit a pillow or something. Yes. What are some practical ways you kind of redirect yourself or maybe redirect your kids that you found works in your homeschool?
Okay. I'm getting better at this.
Yeah.
I want to, because this is an example of being refined, because I've had plenty of times of yelling. I've made my kids cry. I've cried.
I think we all probably
I have hidden from my children.
I have a closet I've mentioned on this podcast. Yeah. I have my closet.
Yes. So I am not the perfect parent, but this is an area that God is really working on me. And I do love to read. And so I pick up, sometimes my kids, I'll do something and my kids are oh, have you read a book? You've read a book. And you're trying out the new stuff on us. I'm yep. We'll see what sticks. It's constantly I'm reading stuff and I just throw what's gonna look, So anyway, man, breathing is really, really helpful, because one thing we have to keep in mind as parents is that we're asking our kids to keep themselves under control, and then we're flying off the handle. So what is that actually teaching them? It's not teaching them to stay under control at all. We're modeling flying off the handle. Yeah. So if we want our kids to learn to manage their mouths and bodies, we need to manage our mouths. I don't think bodies are as hard for adults. I think most of us have learned that by adulthood, not our mouths necessarily. Yeah. And so we need to, we got to keep that at the forefront. I want to model right now being frustrated. So one thing I do is I do tell my children I am frustrated right now, because I do want them to know it's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to be angry. It's how we show that can go off the rails and fall into sin. So sometimes I will say, I am frustrated, and so I'm going to walk away right now, because if I stay, I'm going to do something that is not good. And so frequently I will send them away because I'm working with other people. So I will say, I need you to go to your room for a little while until you can calm down, until I can calm down also. Because we're both getting worked up, and we both need to chill. Because when your brain, so I love all these books I'm reading, so I don't want to
get into it. I love neurological discussions.
It's so,
the amygdala. Let's talk.
Okay, so there's a podcast called Raising Boys and Girls, and it's this group of child therapists. Sissy Goff and David Thomas are the main ones, and they have a bunch of books, and I've read like most of their books on child development. They go into a lot of brain stuff, and so they talk about the brain, and when you get really upset, and this happens with adults too.
Oh yeah.
It's more obvious that it's happening in a kid, but it sure happens in an adult too. When you get worked up, your thinking brain, so they use these terms to help kids understand, but it helps adults too. You've got your thinking brain and your feeling brain, and basically they separate when your emotions rise. And so then you are almost incapable of making a good choice or saying the right thing during those moments. And that applies to adults too. That's when we say those catastrophic things like, you're grounded for a week, or no screen time for a month, or whatever. You say things that later you're like, oh, that was too much. I regret that. And it's when kids scream. So it's important to not react when you are that way. So first of all, you have to start to learn to recognize that your brain is out of whack, that your thinking brain, your feeling brain are not in sync, and you have to have strategies of bringing them back down. So breathing is super, super helpful. I recently read about one that I've been using on my daughter. It's been so effective that she's been telling me, teach them 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's like, so it's all about distracting your brain so that your brain will calm back down. So it's like looking around the room and listing 5 things you see, 4 things you hear. So it's the 5 senses, and you could do them in any order you want. So even like trying to remember what are the 5 senses can be something to distract your brain. So you go through 5 things, 4 things, 3, 2, 1, to go through all the senses. And then we keep doing it and finding that it's working, and it just relaxes your body, and it allows your brain to come back. And then you can talk. Then you can go back to your child and be like, that wasn't great what just happened, and you can basically have a do-over. Sometimes it takes longer. Some of my kids have gone through phases where they are out of whack for like an hour.
Yep. I have one like that.
Yeah. It doesn't last. It won't last forever anyway, in my experience.
Yeah. Those personalities that just hold on to that moment, and they just can't get over it. I am right now researching my brain out. Like, how can I help him through this? Because I want him to know, like, buddy, it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, it's okay. We're going to talk through it. But it's almost like he's beating himself up. And I don't want him to do that either. And I don't want our relationship, as we're talking about, to suffer either. I want him to know I'm here for you. And that's all I'm at. Like, I just tell him, buddy, I'm here. What do you need?
Right. Well, and that is so tricky too, because yes, we're here. Yes, we love them so much, and we want them to but they also need to learn how to realize, like, okay, something's going on. Yeah. How am I going to fix it? Because we want to launch them as adults.
Yes.
Who, will hit the bumps in life and be able to calm themselves back down. Because it happens, whether they go all full anxiety like we have in society now, where like everybody's so anxious, or whether they're just more run of the mill, like just have some bumps, have some waves in life that still want to try and knock them down. Like, so we want to teach them to the word is not coming to my mind, but self-regulate.
There you go.
We want them to learn how to regulate. So more than like you saying, I'm here, it's giving them tools and saying, use your tools. So David Thomas, the guy we were just talking about, he talks about, for boys, he has a Raising Emotionally Strong Boys book. That's what you need to read. I've heard of that. And he talks about building a toolbox. So we legitimately, for one of my kids, built this. It was a basket, and we're like, this is your toolbox. And it's like all these things to like mash and smash. And so I would send him to his room to be alone, to stew. Because one thing that works me up is when my kids are like fuming in my presence. It's just one of my weaknesses that when it's actually not, because as I've learned from reading, other people's stress around you really does.
You can feel it.
You can. Mm-hmm. And it affects your own body. So I move my fuming kids. And so for him, I would say, go to your toolbox and interact with the things in your toolbox. And so his little phase like that probably lasted 6 months.
Yeah.
And then he was able to self-regulate quicker.
The toolbox is so crucial. And I know that I'm a younger parent. I'm a strong feeler. I have always been that way. And my son is a strong feeler. He's 2.5 for context, but he's very verbal. And so last year, especially, last year was a year where I had the basket and we were going over our words because he could talk very well by that point. So we're going over our emotions, words, but I had a basket in the corner of the room where we often were, where he would go to his toolbox, exactly like you're saying. There are all kinds of things in there, a lot of tactile things, because again, you're trying to help your body and your brain to communicate again, so that you can have a conversation, so that you can think.
Right.
But he would go there with the feelings words, and sometimes it would be, touch the one that you're feeling. Which one is this? So that you can identify, so that I can identify.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then some of it was just, all right, go ahead and squeeze this squishy thing, until we can get back to where we need to be.
Right.
But I love that you have already just been so honest about the fact that sin is the issue. And the fact that the Lord provides a way of escape for that. He designed our bodies. He designed our brains. This is a challenge. That's why homeschooling is not the problem. We're all going to have to navigate this no matter how we choose to live our lives. But isn't it so beautiful that he has given us tools and that we can learn from each other? And so I just love that you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Okay, guys, we want to interrupt this show really quickly to tell you about The Secret Garden. So The Secret Garden is a beloved classic novel, and the footnotes of this particular version include word definitions, pronunciations, and historical context to support lifelong learning. This also will enable students to go deeper into the reading. So the particular versions that we release of these novels have wide margins, and that can help you to have a conversation with the book as you annotate it. So how is this a Christian book? It's actually a Christian book because The Secret Garden focuses on Christian themes such as redemption, love, and the importance of community. We've also added a foreword for you, and that foreword reminds us to approach life with wisdom. So this version of The Secret Garden is perfect for reading aloud, and it's suitable for independent reading as well as becoming a part of your family's library. There are a wide range of applications for these books, and in addition to being aligned with the Classical Conversations curriculums, they are also wonderful standalone publications. So if you'd like to learn more about our release of The Secret Garden, you can find out more about the Copper Lodge Library at copperlodgelibrary.com. That is COPPERLODGE library.com. Let's get back to the show.
So Emily, as you were asking this question about homeschooling and relationships, talking about that with people, what did God reveal maybe to you that you hadn't seen before through hearing the answers, asking the questions, pondering that in your own heart?
Oh, that's really good. I think one thing that I continue to learn and just be amazed at God's creativity, at how different He made everyone. And it took me becoming a director, which means like Foundations Essentials directors are often working with a lot of families and bumping up against personalities and seeing just how different God made everyone, and that we don't all have the exact same strengths and weaknesses. We don't all have the same sin struggles. And so that was definitely magnified for me. And we don't all have the same worries. I don't know. So it was just another opportunity to say, Lord, you are so amazing in how you've made everyone. And just our kids are all different, and how they're going to interact with us is so different. There's just so many variables and factors, and Jesus is just in it all. Like, I don't know. I thought that was really, really cool. And I hope my heart is always in sharing all these things on Instagram is that other people will see and be encouraged. Mm-hmm. So my hope with pulling all that together, because I already knew the truth for me. The truth for me was, this is awesome for my relationship with Jesus, my relationship with my kids, our relationship as a family. Homeschooling is amazing. It's such a gift. And but because I know that there is this thing that might be holding people back, I want to encourage people with others' stories. I think sometimes there are a lot of things in life you're not going to believe it until you experience it for yourself.
Yeah.
And I think I started the post saying that, like, you're not really going to know for sure until you dive in. But I hope that by collecting these, stories, that I'll convince you that it's worth the jump. And I love reading other people's stories and just seeing like all the different ways that God made mamas and kids and how it still worked and how God still used, all those relationships to bring him glory and to like make amazing mamas and refine moms and, grow up kids who love him. That's not a guarantee, but still, just strong relationships and families. So I don't know. I loved that.
Yeah. And it's a way that we can answer the call to stewardship, of our families, of our children's time. While you are raising your kids, you do have a biblical responsibility to raise them in the admonition of the Lord. And this is a beautiful way that you can do it. It's an awesome opportunity, and how cool to get that front row seat, right? So I love that. Do any of those stories come to mind that maybe you could share?
There was one story from a mama who had adopted a child. I think she was a 7-year-old little girl by the time she adopted her. And she had, she came into the family with a lot of pain and hurts from the past. But the mom decided that despite like the difficulty, like you can imagine a relationship like that would immediately be incredibly strained and difficult and challenging. But this mom decided that the healing of her daughter was so paramount that it was worth the difficulty to homeschool her so that she would have the extra time to work on their relationship. And so she was just sharing with me that, the fruit of that she's seeing that healing happening. And that is so amazing. So she said, she could have sent her away for 8 hours a day, but then they would just have such a little bit of time in the evenings to work on their relationship. So, because that's one of the time is like what's so precious here. And when you choose to homeschool, you can just put on the brakes of what you're doing, your math lesson, to work on something. And that was actually something I wanted to say before. If people are flying off the handle during school time, that's not the time to say, now do your work. Ah! So often I think we parents, we just want to you want them to obey right now. During school time, like when you're trying to get them to do lessons, we also, as moms, need to remember that they're not going to actually be able to work very well if they're super stressed and you're yelling at them. So we need to give ourselves a chance to calm down, and we need them to calm down, even if that means that they're not doing their work for a few minutes. So you need to allow yourself the grace and give them the gift of being able to step away until you've calmed down. The temptation, I think, is just to insist that they obey. And in that moment, the obedience is to do the work. But if you've gotten so worked up by their disobedience in doing the work, then now your problem now is not the disobedience. Your problem now is how you're going to react to the disobedience and the disrespect. So, and I think we all have a temptation to fly off the handle in the face of that. So I think if you can keep yourself calm, then you can continue to insist it. But if you realize that you have crossed the line, then you need to give yourself time to calm down, and you need to let them go for a little bit until you're both calmer. And then you come back and you can talk about it and say the disobedience was not okay. Whatever. So I think we can start off with good intentions, but we need to recognize, we need to be better about, and that's something God can refine us in. And we can ask the Lord, show me where you're working on me in this. And that's a place in the midst of the homeschool morning where you might find yourself tipping into that. If you've got that kid that just sits there and you're just, man, they make your, some of our kids, our fuse is so short with some of our kids because they just great. In certain seasons. Yes, they're just the button pushers. So we might be quicker to lose our patience with them. So we need to be aware of those things. Yeah. And we can ask Jesus, like, Lord, just make it put that magnifying glass on me, where the things are that are really pushing my buttons so that I can not be pushed,
Yeah. And even another beauty of homeschooling, going back to the time, is that if you find that you have that strain, you can create more time to build in really beautiful moments to help balance out that scale so that although you are pushing my button, that goes for marriage. That goes for any relationship you have. Right. You do not have to allow it to always be the bad and the hard. You guys don't always have to talk about bills. You can choose to orient your mind. And that is truly a very biblical way to approach it. That's why I was flipping through my Bible. I was thinking of Philippians 4, when he's saying, be anxious in nothing, but in everything. And then there's this list of things you can send your brain to. Let's focus on this. It doesn't mean that your anxieties don't exist. It just means that there are other things you can also give your attention to.
Right. Yeah. It's a what am I looking for? Perception shift. Yeah. You can look at it as, I can't homeschool because my relationship is going to suffer. Or you can look at it as, I want to homeschool because I can build my relationship even stronger. Because you know what? They're going to struggle whether you homeschool or you send your schools to whatever else you send them. Yep. I think we've gotten to the heart of this issue. It's not the homeschooling. It's the sin in our hearts that's the issue. And depending on who you are, you can look at it in either way. Which way are you going to choose to look at it? And let the Lord lead you in whatever decision he's leading you to for you and your family. I'm on the same page as you guys talking earlier. I think everybody can homeschool, but I think it's up to them to pray to the Lord and what is best for your family in this moment as well. But it's all about perception.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So how would you encourage the mama just bringing it in who is like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm in the thick of it. And I just need a pep talk.
Whew. Man, I preach all the time. You are not alone. That's one of my biggest hopes in my social media thing is to try and really get that out there. You are not alone. Your kids are not the only ones who bicker all day long. I promise you are not. You are not weird. You're not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're not screwing up your kids. You're not just, I want to just hug mamas and be like, you're doing great. Even your choice to homeschool shows your commitment to your relationship with them and your commitment to their education. And so that right there puts you, you're doing great. So have grace on yourself. Please have grace on yourself. It just breaks my heart to see moms who really beat themselves up when they fail. And guys, we're all going to fail. I was saying I've yelled at even though I'm growing in that, I still mess up.
Yeah.
I still don't always have the right reaction. And the more that I am learning and the more the Holy Spirit works on me, the less often that happens. But guys, we know there's still circumstances can happen and other things. And then our fuse is nil. And then a kid dares. So we always, no one is going to be perfect in this by a long shot. And there are seasons. And I think the older kids get and the more kids you have, the more you get to experience and see so that you can cling to the truth that there are seasons that kids go to and they're not going to go through and they're not going to stay in them forever. I think sometimes when we're in a hard season, we think, I'm never going to get out of this. It's always going to be this way. Or my kid will never learn whatever, or my kid will always be whatever, fill in the blank. And it's not true. And so we need to cling to that. And so if you don't have your own experiences to lean on, that's when being in a community of other homeschoolers where you can share with them and be really honest and say, I am having a tough time. I am in a tough season. It's not going well at home. It's not pretty. I'm not reacting properly. They're certainly not reacting properly. Please, and that's when a mama can give you a real hug. If I could hug all the moms, just a giant hug. That's what I try to do through Instagram. Just hug people. You're doing great. But I think it's so important to not homeschool alone. Homeschooling is hard. Is really hard. And to do it alone, I think would be about the scariest thing I can think of.
Yeah. I love it.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm going to switch gears real quick because another thing I love about you is how much you do share. So if a new mama came up to you and she's like, all right, I'm going to do this, what are your homeschool must-haves?
A lot of homeschoolers, hopefully you might, anyway, want to create like this beautiful homeschool space, like so gorgeous. Like I have a homeschool room and I have built-in desks. So my opinion on that is that your kids are going to grow and change, and their needs are going to, and you're going to like change what you want. And so those beautiful built-in desks, a couple years from now, you might be like, man, I wish my kids weren't all lined up on that one wall because they're punching each other or they're distracting each other. And so you're going to wish that you could move the room around. So that's one of my little things I like to say generally about homeschooling is for those people who are creating like a space, and I have a space, I have a homeschool room, but it's full of tables that I move around. Like every year I'm like moving kids around because kids do distract each, and we're changing the arrangement. And so I like the flexibility of being able to do that. But then on that same note, have freedom to homeschool wherever in your house, wherever in the city, wherever in the world, right? So we're all different. I'm one that I like to just do it all in the schoolroom, and I'll send kids away. Like if somebody is super distracted, I'm like, you can go sit in the kitchen, but I'm sitting there at the homeschool table so that I can work with everybody. And so that works for me, but I love that homeschooling, you can do it anywhere, whatever works for you. But let's think about something else. It's a must have. Ooh. I mean, people, we already said the people, having people around you. So whether it's a, classical conversations community or another kind of co-op or just a play group at church, having other people who are also homeschooling so that you can just bounce ideas, talk about hard things. Your kids can have friends. You can have friends. That's super important. It is a must-have, especially if you have boys, to have places in your house that they can move. And so, yes, in my tiny little schoolroom that is packed with tables, I also have a dip bar. So a dip bar is like, it's for adults to do. I think what you're supposed to do is like put your hands on it and like lift up, like straighten your arms, and then it's sort of like a reverse pull-up kind of thingy. But I got it because our tables are so close together that I'd have a kid put one hand on one table and one hand on another and swing, and they would shake my tables. I'd be like, quit shaking the table. So I got a dip bar, and so I'll just be like, dip bar. So they'll put the hands on the dip bar. Go to the dip bar. And now we use it. They're on it every single day. Yeah. So I have 3 boys. My 14. I need to tell people that your wiggly kid will grow out of it. I wasn't sure. That was one thing I was like, is he ever going to sit still? My 14-year-old can sit still now. Yay! So it does happen. So he doesn't really get on the dip bar anymore. But my 11-year-old and 9-year-old boys get on it every day. So when we're doing like spelling, when we're doing flashcards, when we're doing memory work practice, they are on the dip bar. And I'll just send them there. They'll stand on it. They'll like pull on it. They'll just climb on it, just all over the place. But I also have like a gymnastics bar. I have built this up over years. I didn't get it all at once. So if you could only get one movement thing, I would get the dip bar. Yeah. But we've had trampolines in the past. The gymnastics bar, I have this like wiggle mat that I've put under my dip bar, which is also very cool because then they sort of mess with their feet while they're doing the dip bar. I don't know. I love it. I love all the, I have a little hand squeezy thing. So it's really important to give boys especially, but also I'm sure there's lots of energetic girls out there. Oh yeah. My daughter isn't as energetic as my boys, but it's really important. Mm-hmm. And so I love that is a must have. So thank you for bringing that up because yes, I want to thank you. Is there anything else that I forgot that you see me post about?
That's my favorite thing. I love it so bad.
I love it.
And it's so great. I've never heard of this dip bar. I've seen them. I think at the gym. Yeah. But that's such a great idea because that's how God designed boys' brains. Yes. Like they learn as they're moving.
They need to move.
And so I think sometimes, and this is a whole conversation for another podcast, it really is. For the mom who needs to hear it, there's nothing wrong with your little boy. Yeah. He's actually doing what God has created.
It's okay that he's not sitting still.
Yes. And if you can encourage him to move, he'll learn more. Yeah. And so that's a way you guys can work together. Yeah. So that's just so encouraging to hear that the Lord has given you ways to empower your boys to continue to learn and grow. And one day, 14 at this time, they'll be able to do.
I think it was by 13 we're like, oh, he's sitting still.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's such a good reminder too, like, homeschooling is not just school at home. Right. It looks so different. Right. And I'm still, my mind is blown that I actually sat through school for 8 hours at those ages too. Whereas now I'm just in such a different mindset. Like these kids need to move, and it's not a disciplinary problem or something going on in their brain. They're just being themselves, and to allow them to be themselves in our presence. Because going back to what we're talking about, they're going to struggle whether they're at home or at school. And what a blessing it is for you to be there when they go through that struggle. So they're going to you with those problems.
Exactly.
What a blessing it is that you get to go through that with them being at home. But Emily, thank you so much for being here with us today. This has been such a fun conversation. If our audience wants to find you, what are your Instagram handles, or where can we find you?
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram and YouTube. I have some YouTube videos that are especially for tutors and directors at Emily the Homeschooler. So on both of those platforms, Emily the Homeschooler. Yeah.
Well, this was great. Thank you again.
Yes, thanks for having me. This has been really fun.
Well, guys, I know that you enjoyed that conversation, and we would love to hear actually what stuck out to you. Was there a moment that was a light bulb moment or something that was very encouraging to you? If you had one of those moments, you can find us over on social media at Blessings and Motherhood, and we would love to hear all about it. Also, don't forget to go and talk to Emily the Homeschooler. She was such an encouragement to us, and we hope that you will subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss the next episode.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.